Commanders fans, the urgency is real. Ready for the truth nobody else wants to say out loud. Marshawn Lattimore's exit just freed up a fortune, but the fear of wasting a golden opportunity is right on our heels. Can Trey Hendrickson flip everything on its head? And the big question that is driving everyone crazy, is Jaden Daniels about to reunite with Brandon AIYUK? This is high-level chess, and only here are you getting the full picture of how Adam Peters is rewriting our future. News 1. Goodbye, Lattimore. Commanders free up $18.5 million in cap space. All right, Commanders Nation. Let's start with a move that did not exactly blindside anyone, but still feels like a massive relief and a straight-up masterstroke by Adam Peters that gives this team more financial breathing room than you can imagine. Marshawn Lattimore is no longer a Commander, and the biggest thing, bro, is this. Cutting ties with him pumps a ridiculous $18.5 million of fresh cap space into the books with zero dead money. That is what you call a clean exit, strategic, and absolutely necessary for the future of this franchise. Let's keep it brutally honest. Marshawn Lattimore's run in Washington was, to put it nicely, a flat-out disaster. When Adam Peters pulled the trigger back in November of 2024 to bring him over from the New Orleans Saints, the hype was real. You could feel it all over the fan base. A four-time Pro Bowler, an elite cover corner, a player with a reputation for changing games just by being on the field. At that point, the Commanders were coming off an impressive run to the NFC Championship game, and the idea was simple. Lattimore would be the piece that finally pushed this team to the Super Bowl. Man, we could not have been more wrong. From day one, it just never clicked. In 2024, Lattimore suited up for only 2 games because of a string of injuries that kept him sidelined. 2 games, bro. Then in 2025, he finally got back on the field, but his season ended in Week 9 against the Seattle Seahawks after he tore his ACL. When you add it all up across 2 full seasons in burgundy and gold, Marshawn Lattimore played in only 11 games. 11 games for what we paid for 3 draft picks, a third, a fourth, and a sixth in 2025, and getting just a 5th back. That is the kind of number that breaks your heart as a fan and makes you question every decision. That is a massive chunk of draft capital for almost no real return. And it was not just the lack of availability. When he did actually step onto the field, his production was nowhere near what you expect from somebody with that resume and that contract. In those 11 games, he posted 31 tackles, 1 interception, and 10 passes defended. His overall PFF grade in 2025 slotted him 96th out of 114 qualified cornerbacks. 96th. That is flat out unacceptable for the player who was supposed to be the anchor of the secondary, the one locking down top opposing receivers every week. Washington finished the 2025 season with the worst defense in the league, giving up an average of 384 yards per game. And instead of being the fix, Lattimore turned into part of the problem, another weight dragging down a unit that was already in trouble. Commanders analyst Ivan Lambert summed it up perfectly in Riggo's rag and did not sugarcoat a single thing, which I respect. Hands down, the worst disappointment for GM Adam Peters. Lattimore was done. He was terrible. He was, in fact, a liability. Forget about the gun charges last week. Lattimore was never going to be brought back for 2026. He is absolutely right. It was not just the on-field letdown. The off-field issues only made everything worse and added a totally unnecessary layer of drama. The arrest in Lakewood, Ohio on January 7th, 2026 on charges of carrying a concealed weapon was the cherry on top, the final nail in the coffin of his time in Washington. Even though this cut had been looming for weeks, that incident just sped things up and made it crystal clear that his run here was totally over. The silver lining, if we can pull anything positive out of this mess, is that his $16.5 million salary for 2026 was not guaranteed. That made the decision to cut him a no-brainer from a financial perspective, avoiding any dead money that could have handcuffed future roster moves. The front office played this smart by waiting for the right moment, making sure there were no complications with the CBA's injury protection benefits that sometimes kick in for injured players when they are released. By waiting on final medical evaluations and some clarity on his legal situation, Peters made sure the team stayed square with the league and the NFLPA, locking in that full $18.5 million of clean cap space. That is a savvy move that shows just how sharp this new front office really is. Now, with that decision in the books, the Commanders are sitting on roughly $66.5 million in projected cap space heading into free agency, which opens on March 11th. That is a whole lot of money, fam, and it is landing at an absolutely crucial moment. New defensive coordinator Durante Jones, coming over from the Minnesota Vikings, is inheriting a secondary that basically needs to be rebuilt from scratch. Lattimore's exit, as painful as it is when you think about the draft picks and the disappointment, opens the door for a real reset, a chance to bring in players who actually fit Jones's vision. Adam Peters now has serious financial flexibility. He can go hard in free agency to land proven, impact defenders who can instantly raise the level of this unit, or he can lean more heavily into the draft, where Washington is sitting on a top 5 pick that is absolute gold. Most likely, it is going to be some smart blend of both. The Lattimore chapter is slammed shut. It was a costly lesson in the risks of going all in on a big trade, but that same move has now cleared the way for a much more promising future. This is the beginning of something bigger, bro, and it is going to be fun watching how Peters uses this cap space to reshape the defense and hopefully the entire culture of the team. The era of playing for average and burning picks on bad gambles is done, and man, it feels good to have that weight off this franchise's shoulders. That is the type of energy this team needs right now. Tough but necessary calls, no sentimental nonsense, all about what is best for the Commanders, but do not zone out yet, because if you think that was big, just wait for what is next. There is a name out there who could completely flip our defensive front, a straight-up monster who would have us fired up and opposing quarterbacks shook. Time for the next bombshell. News 2, Trey Hendrickson, the next monster on Washington's defensive line. Okay, Commanders Nation, lock in because this one has real game-changing potential. We're talking about a move that could totally transform this defense from a group that is just trying to hang on to one that flat-out dictates games. The name is Trey Hendrickson, the pass rusher from the Cincinnati Bengals, and the possibility, more real and more exciting by the day, that this player ends up calling Washington home. Y'all do not understand how huge this could be for this team, man. This would not just be another signing. This would be a full-blown statement. It would be Adam Peters putting the entire league on notice that there are no half measures happening in Ashburn. Edge is easily the biggest and most urgent need on this roster. There have been flashes from a few guys, sure, a pressure here, a sack there, but what this defense is missing is that every week problem for offensive coordinators. That one pass rusher you have to account for on every snap because they can wreck your game plan with a timely sack, a strip sack that flips the field, or constant pressure that forces bad throws. Hendrickson, fam, is exactly that type of player. We are talking all-pro caliber, a force who has been one of the most disruptive pass rushers in the league, a straight-up game wrecker. Last year, there were already strong rumors that the Commanders had poked around on a possible trade for Hendrickson after he asked for a new contract in Cincinnati. In the end, he stayed put on a one-year deal, basically a prove-it-again contract. But now the landscape looks a whole lot different and a whole lot better for Washington. This offseason, if the Bengals decide not to hit him with the franchise tag, which would cost them close to $27 million, a big number even for a team like Cincinnati, Hendrickson walks into free agency as the #1 pass rusher on the market, and guess which team has already been circled as his top fit by A to Z Sports? That is right, Washington. That is not random, bro. When analysts all start connecting the same dots, there is usually some smoke. And where there is smoke, there is often fire. Just picture it for a second. Trey Hendrickson with that burst off the line, that polished handwork, that nonstop motor, and that killer instinct. Lining up on our defensive front, this is a player who has been one of the most productive edge rushers in football these last few seasons. Before this past year, he put together back-to-back seasons with 17.5 sacks. 17.5 sacks. That is insane production. That is the kind of output that changes games, flips possessions, and forces teams to tear up their game plans. This is not some one-year wonder. This is a consistent problem for offenses. Yeah, it is true that last season did not go as smoothly. He only played in 7 games because of injuries and finished with 4 sacks, where some folks will look at that and see red flags. But here is the key detail that changes the whole conversation. He had core muscle surgery in December, and the expectation is that he will be fully healthy and back to 100% for the start of next season. That means any team that signs him is getting a healthy Hendrickson, hungry and ready to prove all over again that he is still that dude. Sometimes those so-called down years caused by injury are the exact window a smart front office needs to strike. This is where the good kind of dilemma kicks in for Adam Peters. Hendrickson is 31 years old, which is about the age where some pass rushers start to slide, but he is still playing at a high level when he is right. Projections have him in the $26 to $30 million per year range in free agency. That is big-time money, a massive contract that is absolutely going to take a big chunk out of Washington's cap space. But how often do you get a shot at signing an all-pro level game wrecker who is still right in the middle of a dominant stretch of their career? These kinds of chances do not show up every offseason. When they do, a smart GM finds a way to make it happen. Peters has to do the full workup, dig into the medicals, the durability history, the long-term projection. But if everything checks out, and with $66.5 million in cap room, signing Hendrickson is a move that has to be on the table, even if it means dropping a big piece of that cap on just one player. If Washington pulls it off and lands Hendrickson, it does more than just patch a major hole on defense. It also gives this front office a ton of flexibility with the 7th overall pick in the draft. Instead of feeling boxed into taking an edge at 7 just to fill a need, the Commanders could pivot to an elite offensive tackle to protect Jaden Daniels, a top-tier cornerback to continue rebuilding Durante Jones's secondary, or even a wide receiver if the board falls just right. The pressure Hendrickson would generate alongside the rest of this defensive front would be nasty. The synergy, the disruption, the chaos they could create together, offensive lines would be on their heels all game. Bro, just the mental image of Hendrickson in burgundy and gold, blowing up backfields, hunting NFC East quarterbacks, gives you chills. It would be a complete shift for this defense, turning them into a nightmare matchup every week and a deciding factor in tight games. This would not just be Washington signing a good player. It would be a full-blown declaration. It would be Adam Peters telling the rest of the league, we are coming to compete right now. It would send a clear message that the Commanders are done being an easy W on the schedule and are building a bully from the trenches out. Free agency opens March 11th, and if Hendrickson actually hits the market, Washington needs to be ready to come out swinging and make a serious offer. You do not get many clean shots at adding a talent like this. Peters cannot afford to let this one slide. That is exactly the energy this team needs. Fam, a player like Hendrickson could be the piece that drags this defense into a whole new tier, giving the team a real identity as a tough, physical, attacking unit. But we cannot forget about the offense because Jaden Daniels has some wishes of his own, and the next name on the list is one that has Commanders fans dreaming about big plays and an already established connection that is just waiting to be rekindled. Time to talk about one of the most anticipated reunions out there. News 3, Brandon AIYUK and Jaden Daniels reunion in Washington. All right, Commanders faithful, now we are diving into the rumor that has the whole football world buzzing with our quarterback Jaden Daniels dropping hints on social media and honestly putting a huge grin on plenty of faces around D.C. The name is Brandon AIYUK, and the increasingly tempting possibility that this receiver ends up joining the Washington Commanders. The hype is real, and this move has legit potential to blow up this offense to give Jaden a weapon already locked in with built-in chemistry. The San Francisco 49ers, after a messy mix of contract drama and injuries, are lining things up to move on from the veteran wideout. And guess who is sitting right at the top of just about every list from analysts and fans as the ideal destination? Washington Niners GM John Lynch has already said publicly that it is safe to say AIYUK has played his last snap for San Francisco. That is as clear as it gets, bro. The relationship is done. But what has Commanders fans really fired up is the tie back to our quarterback, Jaden Daniels. Our Jaden Daniels has made it pretty obvious he would love to link back up with his former Arizona State teammate. That connection is real. Fam, the chemistry already worked at the college level, and there is every reason to think it could carry over on Sundays. Of course, this is the NFL, and nothing is ever as simple as a tweet or an Instagram like. AIYUK's situation is a full-on financial maze, contracts, injuries, and strained relationships all tangled together. He signed a 4-year, $120 million extension right before the 2024 season. That is a massive investment by any measure, but then things went sideways. He only played 7 games in 2024 because of an injury, and he did not play a single snap in 2025 while he worked back from a serious knee issue and dealt with a steadily deteriorating relationship with the team. Because of all that, the Niners ended up voiding his guarantees for 2026, which brings us to where we are now. This is where things get ugly for San Francisco and complicated for any team interested in AIYUK, including Washington. Matt Okada over at NFL.com broke it down clearly. If the Niners cut AIYUK before June 1st, they eat $29.5 million in dead money with zero cap savings. Nobody wants that hit, but if they designate him as a post-June 1st cut or manage to trade him after that date, if some team steps up, then they can save $6.3 million. That math points to this dragging out into the summer. And that, fam, is where the timing starts to become a real concern. From Washington's perspective, here is the issue. Teams in this league almost never trade for somebody they are convinced is going to be cut anyway. It is just bad business. And if the Commanders did decide to trade for AIYUK, they would probably have to take on the whole contract to keep San Francisco from swallowing that massive dead cap number, because trades cannot really be treated like post-June 1st cuts in the same way. On top of that, Adam Peters is already light on draft capital after shipping 2 of his top 4 picks to the Houston Texans last year. Every pick matters right now, and this front office cannot afford to throw them around carelessly. Ideally, Washington wants AIYUK in the building when the offseason program kicks off in April. The goal would be to have him working with Jaden, learning new offensive coordinator David Blau's system, and building that timing on the field from day one, not rolling in a month and a half after June 1st. If Peters is not willing to trade for him, which would be completely understandable, and Lynch decides to hold firm until June to dodge the brutal dead cap hit, then you have to ask, are the Commanders really going to sit around and wait that long without locking in a true number 2 wideout behind Terry McLaurin? How does that affect Blau's ability to sketch out this offense and install everything with the right pieces actually on the field early in the process? Those are real questions that have to be answered. Man, this is high-end chess. Peters has to walk the line between chasing a perfect fit and staying disciplined with both cap space and draft picks. He cannot let the emotional pull of the Daniels-AIYUK reunion override hard business logic. Meanwhile, AIYUK does not have a ton of leverage here. The relationship with the Niners is strained. Fans and media are already split on who is really to blame. And if he starts making too much noise in public or trying to force his way out with demands and drama, he only hurts his own image. At best, people see this as an even split problem right now. At worst, he's already being painted as the main villain. So even though the connection with Jaden is legitimate, the on-field chemistry is obvious, and the fit in Washington's offense makes a ton of sense. The money and the timing are the real obstacles. But if Adam Peters somehow finds a way to get this done, now we are talking about a whole different level of potential. Picture Jaden Daniels dropping back with Terry McLaurin as the number 1 and Brandon AIYUK as the number 2. That is an explosive attack. Fam, a legit dynamic duo that can stretch the field vertically, win on underneath and intermediate routes thanks to AIYUK's separation skills, and open everything up for the run game. It would give Jaden answers on every snap and put defensive coordinators in a weekly bind. Patience is going to be huge here. But the payoff, if it happens, could be massive. This move could turn Washington's offense into one of the most exciting units in the league. So yeah, we are all crossing our fingers that Peters can find a way to bring AIYUK to DC and reunite this wideout with the quarterback who already knows exactly how to feed him the rock. What a roller coaster ride, Commanders fam. From the cap relief we get by moving on from Lattimore, a tough but absolutely necessary call, to the dream of landing an elite pass rusher like Trey Hendrickson, who could completely overhaul this defense, and then the potential reunion of Jaden Daniels and Brandon AIYUK that would have this offense primed for fireworks. This offseason is not for the faint of heart. It is built for the ones who live and breathe Commanders football every day. Adam Peters and the front office are grinding nonstop, moving pieces with surgical precision, scouting talent with a sharp eye, and piecing together a roster that can finally bring back the glory this fan base has been starving for. So stay locked in, Commanders fam, because this is just getting started. Free agency is right around the corner. The draft is coming fast, and every single day brings a new story that could reshape the future of this franchise. Do not miss a thing. The rebuild is in full swing, the excitement is real, and the hope around this team is more alive than it has been in a long time. We're on the right track, fam, and before you dip out, bro, if you made it this far, prove you are a real Commanders fan who shares this unshakable passion. Drop a like, hit that subscribe button if you have not already, and most importantly, jump into the comments and tell me which move gets you the most hyped. Trey Hendrickson to dominate in the trenches, Brandon AIYUK to give Jaden Daniels another deadly weapon, or do you have another name you think Adam Peters should chase with all this cap space? I want to hear from every single one of you. Your takes are pure gold and a huge part of this community. Until next time, and hail to the Commanders.